Hello, welcome back to the Funk Treatise 5th edition. Today, these pages, pages 41 through 50, I believe, let me double check, yep, 41 through 50, are going to be read by Justin Clay, Houston's very own partial of Darwin's Finches. Let's get started with that.
Hello, my name's Justin Clay, and I'm reading pages 41 through 50. Although I'm going to start on page 40 just because the paragraph
Cool.
that I have starts there. Why does this data make more sense to me/us, you ask? If all these patterns of knowledge and experience are here and there and are now observable more easily, shared and understandable, or if not, now increasingly more accessible to that understanding or achieving, then why am I or we still confused about it? This is a part of learning. March 23rd, 2024. Imagine buying a book or a video game and right after you started it, you were able to instantly reach the end and finish it. Would that be enjoyable? Compressing the entire story and emotional journey one would hope to experience, what would you learn/retain from that? Or if you watched only the first episode of a series and then the last episode, could you assume what happened in between? I think that is why it is important that we must experience all of reality and beyond as funk so that we can know and understand what funk is/was. The feeling that you are currently...
And so what I mean by that is like the experience and the journey of the experience is just as important as the experience. The equation is just as important as the solution. And yeah, sometimes you can, look at a problem and know the answer and jump straight to it. But for the very difficult things, if you did that, then explaining that to someone or something else is going to be a little bit more difficult. If, like I gave you a video game or a movie, something to enjoy, and you were able to just know it in an instant, is that going to be as enjoyable? I'm sure the answer is subjective, but we're in that step right now. We're in that stage of the in between. So yeah.
currently experiencing and others are understanding to be our parts confusion, understanding, and more. And all of your instinctual feelings are the results of your individual internal selfishness, gathered, challenged, and expanded from our nurturing and nurturing external selfishness.
Selflessness.
You, your, our, and inner and outer influences and beyond. It is important to be selfish to a manageable degree in order for you, our individual branches of time, experience, understanding, and data collection to exist and continue attempting to exist. Each of our selfishness guides us in some ways, at some times distracts us from other selfishness, while also being influenced by and sometimes leading us to selfishness.
Selflessness.
And it is when those points meet that two or more selfish identities are able to connect and expand off of each other or not. Consider two parallel lines that never meet, and their selfish natures to keep expanding in both directions and continue expanding and taking up space they each exist in, and as they get longer and longer, they become larger parallel lines. But they are still just two similar parallel lines that never touch or meet, or perhaps even know each other's existence. Now, these lines are currently parallel, but expanding selflessly inside and out of themselves in every direction, points and space, eventually crossing each other outside and inside of their selfish paths. Their selfish and selfless interactions paint a much larger picture than just two lines that never met. Now, picture these parallel lines as individual people. They can, with choice or not, move forwards, backwards, sideways, diagonally, etc., communicate with each other or not, know of each other or not, and their points of existence are able to interact at infinite amounts of points across time and space.
Re-expanding on the selfish versus selfless. Um, Again, as we talked in earlier videos, it is important to be both. It's important and natural to be selfish to keep you alive, your body and your mind and everything alive. But then once it gets to the degree where, okay, I'm good, I'm taken care of, then selfishness can switch into actual selfishness of being like, no, this extra is mine, I'm saving it for later, rather than sharing it with your environment. And in that way, when you share with the environment, it can then grow itself and share back to you whenever you need it or it needs it when it is in excess. Um, they flip flop to a degree. You can be selfish by being selfless, and you can be selfless by being selfish, and whatever every variable that you can think of.
Joshua Richards. You kind of got a Leibniz thing going there. Everything to him was mammons
Monads.
that could be broken down from one ultimate monad to many sub-specific monads. My greatest frustration with philosophy has been that each thinker has their own acron to push. Thales
Archon.
with water, Anaximander with infinity,
Got that.
Anaximenes with air, Plato with forms, all the way to logic choppers we have today. There's a certain amount of use in the tactic, and something as vague and fun as your notion is a big step up from the ancients.
Thanks.
What I'm curious about is if this arrives at an application other ideas have not yet. I really love the topic, but philosophy is so very often goes nowhere and produces little.
And it does, like, what I'm noticing in my research of philosophy and religion and ideology and everything is that this is putting them all together. It's got, like, you see signs and hints of it, of people trying to explain it. Kind of like Leibniz explaining monads and everything, being the smallest thing that we could even comprehend or perceive. But I would argue that even monads are made of funk, of more funk. They're just a hold on to something else of being. Even if that being becomes something that we don't even understand. The mix between matter and energy, or energy and thought, or matter and thought, there that conjunctio between these things that connects them somehow, and what contains them and what they're stored in and what they're made of and everything. I think it just continues to break down forever and ever, never, 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 and it just leads to more hold-ons of funk. It's an infinite holarchy. And so to answer, not even to answer your question, but to extend it, the answer is yes and no. This does arrive at applications that other ideas haven't yet because it's more modern, but there also are people from thousands of years ago, like the ancient Greek people, who were talking about things in these degrees. They just weren't there yet to what we can explain it in our time. Again, as I point out, all of that is important. It's these stepping stones, the building structures that lead us to the knowledge that we know today, and each of that is important. Again, at the beginning of this, we talk about if we jump from one to the end, then that's all we have. That's all the information that we get. We don't get all of this middle part, and so all of that is just combined into this middle part. And so what I'm trying to do with this treatise and this theory is combine all that, combine all these ideas, and see how they relate to funk, and how they've evolved into funk, and where, excuse me, they go from there. And I wish that I had more professional philosophers examining this and pointing out the things that make sense and don't, and where they relate to other philosophers, and how they might expand from other philosophers and everything. And so that's why another reason I'm hoping these video treatises expand that reach.
Saturday, January 20th. Enjoy these links. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 links. Sean Penabler.
Oh,
Thank
you
you
almost had
for
it.
the introductions. All of the ideas that these philosophers proposed were significant for their time and seemingly now collectively attribute into what I am gathering and proposing. And the fact that you see those patterns and are able to recognize these connections means that this is becoming more and more understandable to everything inside and outside of their theories and mine.
And I'd also like to point out here in the treatise, again, and we've kind of showcased these moments before, but I really want you to notice how in the treatise, when others present these ideas, they're not just they're the stepping stones in the treatise. They're explaining these concepts and ideas as we unfold them, and they're stepping at the right moments. And there's some even better examples later on, when we're talking about like to give examples of like the allegory of Plato's cave and what I call the philosopher's curse, and some of them say some things that like it's like they're talking to the future. And that's what they were doing here. They were saving this information. The funk provided them to provide it into here so that it could be saved to jump onto here. And so that's what I mean by like all of these ideas that everyone proposed and put together, collected, and then you're now, Josh was sharing it through that, and now it's coming through you. I'll say it a million times. So let's move on.
All of what you shared had to be thought of, exist, and discussed to lead up to these moments of construction creation. Our points within infinity, and we were perhaps able to reach these points as I philosophize. The funk is able to connect itself across time and space and understand what it wants or needs, and then expands with that information, just as we are able to Google these philosophers and learn and expand from them within seconds of our current reality.
And so again, as I've said in the intro and some other videos and stuff, this isn't the final solution. I will most likely never even reach that in my lifetime. And so what I am attempting to do is leave behind a collection of stepping stones, so that if someone ever were to like start diving into philosophy or diving into these questions and things, this could be a place that whether they start here or they wind up here, this is a huge collection of information altogether that expands all of these points and ideas and philosophies, and helps basically like leaves little pins in notes for be like, what is that? I don't understand what that means. Let's look it up. Let's Google it. Let's see how it fits into anything and everything.
The observable patterns slash assumptions of philosophy, often going nowhere, are both accurate and inaccurate. Let's say a philosophical statement is a seed. That seed, after being planted into the minds of others, grows into something that produces another seed. Some seeds eventually stop growing and others die out. But those that live spread roots and branches out in every direction within their universal slash funk reach of us, and everything forever leading to the next event until given enough time. The collective growth potentially somehow loops back around through slash to itself by the connections we currently and seemingly think of as thought, experience, and existence. I propose the ideas we are experiencing, thinking, and dreaming are different accessible collections of beyond monadic points, and each of us are planting and transferring what was once known as incalculable and inconceivably experienced figurative data, but with the help of natural and technological evolution, which I believe has further connected to us and us into it. Life, computers, tech, algorithms, numerical data, and reality itself are influencing and teaching us this information or saving it for review. Philosophy sometimes seemingly goes nowhere because each branch of it is not yet the answer, but still plays a significant role leading up to reaching closer sequential questions and answers, and it is important to prove and slash or defeat each proposal more and more correct or incorrect until we find the theoretical connections to everything and the next iterations of advancement or seed from the branches to the previous tree.
The image I'm slightly picturing in my head as a metaphor for this is like, let's use the idea of a seed, you know, growing and branching out, and then being able to provide uh, things back to its environment, whether that's shade or protection for bugs and birds, or if it's even fruit to feed or become compost. Um, all of its influence branches out in some way, and so planting the seed. Sometimes seeds don't go anywhere. Sometimes you plant a bunch of seeds, and some not all of them grow. Some get eaten by birds, you know, or other uh, animals and insects. Um, but if you don't plant the seed, then none of that really happens, you know. Um, and then after the seed's planted and all that happens and such, an apple falls down onto a what's his face, Newton, and then Newton, you know, invents calculus, or so the story goes.
I propose that our current and often past human natures to dismiss potential further learning because of the current information being proposed or planted is at that point too much or too little to understand, and our selfish dismissals are what slows us down the most as thinkers and doers.
But reaching back into the last paragraph, sorry to stop this one mid paragraph, but um, I talk a lot about how the funk loops into itself in this way. Uh, and what I mean by that, theoretically, this is, again, is like if we give enough time to anything and everything, including the universe, who's to say that the universe itself is not this sentient structure like thing, right? Again, what I call funk. And if you give more and more time to it, eventually, who's to say it doesn't become uh, conscious of itself and everything, whether it's through us or through something else within it. And so again, when you give it enough time down the line, uh, you give the statistical chance of anything and everything happening, given enough time and space. And so somehow, and there's probably better words for this and people who can explain it better. Uh, but when you get to that point so far in the future, it's like, oh man, I want the next future to go a certain way, and so I'm going to dip back into the past and split off into another branch and everything. I'm not explaining this very well, so let's move on.
But imagine if I were able to transfer to you all the information in this book, or a pheromone extraction, and you were able to quickly or instantly understand it and personally connect to it both selfishly and selflessly to absolutely 100% know what I am relaying to you. You and we would be much less dismissive of the fact and falsity within perceived reality, because we could instantly see the whole idea and all the ideas behind them.
And what I mean by that is like, if you and I were able to just right now telepathically connect, and you were able to, and I was telling you something, you would know, uh, depending on the level of telepathy, the level of connection. If you were able to hear the things that I say and know why I'm saying them, why I'm feeling them, you would know if they were true or false. You would know what I know. You would be able to feel what I feel, and so you would know it as yourself to a degree. That would be the closest thing to knowing, but we still wouldn't know exactly what we're talking about. We would still think these things true to our understanding, but would they be epistemically true? But it would. I would believe that it would help us reach there faster, because we would be able to understand the stuff that's holding us back, because we would know that its attempt was to hold us back, unless it was even unknowing. But then we would know that it wasn't sure; it had hesitation, or it was making a guess, unless it was confident. But that just opens up a whole can of theoretics.
I believe we are reaching closer to being able to do that with thought and consciousness using science, technology, and natural evolution. And I postulate internal dialogue, hypnagogia, and the pineal gland to have much to do with it, as it is observably mostly those that have the closer connection to the practice of accessing that gland and these things of consciousness, unconsciousness, and preconsciousness. Creativity that are statistically more so advancing ideas and greatly influencing our past, presents, and futures. Joshua Richards. I think we're a lot closer to that. The most conscious of us pick up on micro expressions. Our cognitive faculties, though amazing, aren't chief. We are emotional animals more than rational ones. Our needs and feelings rarely take the backseat to what the lofty might call pure reason. I give up on that type of thinking a long time ago. I think the aim of philosophy is to just get further away from bad ideas. And if that doesn't push towards good ones, at least we are discarding what isn't useful.
Yeah, to a degree, and that's kind of what I'm saying. But I'm also proposing that even when we do discard, we need to take note of the things that we're discarding, because that might be useful in the future, even if we believe it not to be at the time.
Sean Penabler.
Penalver.
Exactly. You are understanding what I and others within and slash or influenced by these ideas and slash or studies have been experiencing and expressing. And our asymptotes of data and understanding are moving closer and closer to points we and or they may or may never reach. Saturday, December 7th, 2019. The more data slash history slash experience that we create and save, the more likely and available further data slash history experience we will advance from our creations, whether a success or failure. Again, for example, say a seed has been planted. The planting of that seed is the starting point of that branch of data slash history experience. But there's still a whole archive of data slash history experience preceding the seed that led to the point of its planting and the creation of the seed. But now that it has been planted, let's say the seed grows into an orange tree, and let's also say this was a mutation and is officially the first orange tree ever. It is nurtured by nature, and it grows and collects and stores more and more data slash history experience, funk influence, soul, and everything around it is coexisting with that data, and etc. Being created to exist, but the current information and experience of nature doesn't know how to be or interact with an orange tree because there has never been one before, or that eventually the seed or sapling will even be a tree unless it somehow does. So the environment and reality acknowledges the seed or sapling selflessly and continues to exist selfishly, continuously growing further and closer as information and experience over time with the seed as it becomes an orange tree, and soon the selfish slash selfless nature sees that it can selflessly and selfishly connect closer to the orange tree as the environment eventually discovers it can now decompose slash digest the oranges and debris the orange tree is both selfishly and selflessly providing. And these two or more once single collective points and beings that exist alongside each other, having previously never existed slash influenced slash interacted with each other, are now very much closer to each other congruously. And when you apply that logic to the funk, it is everything harmoniously, discordantly, selfishly, and selflessly connecting, reacting, and expanding within and without each other and everything. And even before the oranges could provide selflessly, the tree itself provided shelter, homes for birds, insects, bacteria, etc., gave oxygen to the environment, stabilized the soils, etc. It is now morally wrong for a toucan to eat these oranges.
Is it morally? Not morally wrong.
What's good for the toucan is seemingly a calamity for the orange tree, but they both still provide in some way from each other. The toucan will assist in spreading the influential seeds of the orange tree, and when the toucan itself eventually dies, is eaten, decomposed, and returns to the earth, or the fabrics of space and time, and selflessly assist in further expansion of those and other expanding branches of life, attribute more to the selfless.
Hold on, I skipped a sentence there. And other expanding branches of life and reality. Simply because the toucan was selfish enough to survive long enough to attribute more to the selfless.
And same with the tree, the orange, and everything before and after these objects of matter and influence. Selfishly and selflessly, we provide for the funk that selfishly and selflessly provides for us.
That selflessly provides us and for us. And what I'm kind of getting at there is, again, this system of funk that builds itself and expands itself and evolves itself into the things that it can also use in itself and for itself. The example here, a seed becoming the very first orange tree. I'm sure there was something before orange trees and eventually orange trees evolved, into themselves. A better example I can give is a lot of people the ancient question: which came first, the chicken or the egg? Eggs came way before chickens did, and eventually something evolved into a chicken, and then that chicken just was what it needed to be. It never really needed to evolve beyond that. But there are other birds and everything as well. But the chicken kind of just stayed the chicken. I'm sure chickens are different than they were, a long time ago. Um, but then you get into the selflessness thing. The tree, the let's say go back to the first orange tree, is going to be selfish in the way that it needs to grow. It's going to soak up nutrients from the earth and the rain around it and stuff, and uh, the environment around it is being selfless by giving that to the tree. And then eventually the tree grows into this orange tree. And again, like I said earlier, now it can provide shade uh, or protection, or now the fruits, which provides even more to the environment. And then we have the example: a toucan comes to eat these oranges. Is that a calamity? Is that morally wrong for this thing to come and take from this tree now? But the tree has surpassed its selfishness and is bearing fruit. And this fruit uh, isn't always needed by the tree, right? It is okay to take from the tree and eat this fruit, or it's just eventually going to fall off the tree and decompose back into the earth, give back to the earth. And so the toucan eats this, and then this toucan goes through the same process. It, lives its life, and then whatever happens to it, and it just continues this circle and evolution of uh, life and reality and fun.
25th, 2024. So hopefully we can comprehend the importance of understanding how, why, and when to be selfish or selfless. But we must be selfish to keep ourselves alive and or continue existing. And we must also be selfless to coexist and expand with others. /everything/funk. Seeds, babies, and beginners are inherently selfish until they grow and or prosper enough to selflessly provide for more than themselves. And this cycle repeats seemingly ad infinitum. If you share or give but expect the receiver of that gift to become subservient to your command, then that was /is not an action of selflessness or charity, as you were selfishly paying them for a service you expect that they may possibly provide for you or not. Selflessness is such that you are naturally share your prosperity and success with the funk around you and are thankful to /for the funk within and beyond ourselves /everything for supplying us the opportunity to share our wealth, time, thoughts, presence, etc. Think of a piece of art or music that you enjoy. What is it you like about it? Why does this art or song resonate with you? Why do some things resonate more or less with us and others? Is it a choice or feeling? It's all that and more. Say you are experiencing an event of art or music and something stands out in a more negatively resonating than positive way. A personal feeling of denial. You, to your understanding, did not in that moment enjoy that action or point of experience, and your reaction is to perhaps acknowledge and experience it as infrequently as you are possibly able to, the point of avoiding it or hating it so much you feel the need to express to others your discomfort and negative feelings, and that perhaps they too should avoid it. But to someone or something else that is perhaps within a closer optimistic process of yes and if this then what? then that temporary discomfort does not deter them from learning more about it. And the yes and says, why did this resonate negatively with my positive/neutral, and how can I expand off of that experience together with our environment so that others are able to perhaps resonate closer to what they in the past have been dismissing due to personal negative experience. It is optimistically much more positive to think, wow, that was weird. Why is that so weird to me? Than, wow, that is fucking weird and I don't like it, so it should stop and never happen again, and everyone who enjoys it is an idiot. While also still subjective and relative to the experiences. April 21st, 2022. Both and all of these previous example sentences with further or different context become something else entirely than what they may be, have been, or will become. And each of us has the ability to experience our perspective of the greater perspectives, whether group or higher metaphysical echelon. We morph the inputs of our outputs and input that output into each other, beyond and between yes and no, and all or none, and become the greater output of the input as it output/inputs forever.
So what I mean there, for an example, is like, let's say you heard a song, right? Or I'm going to use art for a better example. There's a lot of art that when people see it, they're just like, what the hell is this? You know, I don't get it. But if you took the time to just be like, okay, you don't get it, then give it purpose. Whether it's what you think the artist meant about it, or what you think about it, what you feel about it. To just sit there and be like, I don't get it. Yeah, that's an experience. But if you sat there and you had a little bit, just a 1% more, guess what it means, guess what it is. Look at it in a different perspective. Take some time to experience and be with it, rather than just flat out, nope, this isn't for me. And sometimes things just, maybe, they aren't for you. But give it a moment to think, why isn't this for me? What is the thing that's doing this? And again, I'm not dismissing like terrible experiences and traumatic experiences that should be avoided. Again, this is all part of that learning process. We're learning the things that are that and the things that aren't that, and how they're different for each and every one of us, and how to relate that to everyone to help us avoid those negative moments, the less aberrac.
I'm not saying to then only dismiss every negative experience and try to rid of them entirely. If someone feels a way, then that is their way, and you can't change that exact moment of initial feeling. But everyone willing can potentially work together and reach out to the next point of resonation for someone and something else. It just takes a lot of patience and understanding to do so. Unfortunately, that is something that is much harder for those on the side of denial or negation to do. And that's why it is important for those who are able to say yes and to apply patience and empathy and assist those who cannot or are unable. And there are some who functionally cannot and will not ever be able to accept things as closely as others are, and that is okay, because we can choose to help each other. We can use that past information/experience or discord to figure it out. There will always be peace within chaos, and vice versa, vice voca verum. yin and yang, and as I've said before, with effort and time, yin and yang are able to do seemingly reach are able and do seemingly reach into each other and overlap and expand more than both ways in all directions.
And so, expanding on what Josh said earlier, let's scroll back. Our needs and feelings rarely take the back seat to what the lofty might call pure reason, because we're emotional. And instead of doing what's reasonable, we take our emotions and those overpower, and then we just ignore it. We put it down and we say, "Oh, this isn't for me" or anything. But additionally, um, some people literally won't be able to do that. And I don't know if it's something that can be taught to someone who doesn't have that ability. Um, like, let's take blindness for example. You can't teach a blind person how to see. You can teach them uh, how to exist with uh, in their state and experience, and we can teach each other how to help and assist with that and live with it. But if you literally just were like, nope, I don't care for blind people, I don't care for blindness, then that's the kind of ignorance that I'm talking about that slows down progress. And why would you? It's questionable for each of us, but like some people are literally like that. They're just no. I I don't understand this thing, and I'm not going to even attempt to do so. Uh, I even if they have the power, but again, some people won't have that. It's we each have our own different abilities of doing things and understanding things and experiencing things, and so that's another thing that I'm putting out there. Like, is this something that's even possible for us all to do? Um, and if so, how do we teach that more? How do we teach empathy and compassion um, to where it becomes just a part of what we are as beings? Um, can we teach empathy and compassion to a computer? Uh, because again, with humans, not everyone's going to be able to do that. Some people are left-handed, some people are right-handed, some people are colorblind. We don't all have the exact same abilities, and so some people just maybe not have this thing, and I don't want that to become a excuse for people to be like, well, I just don't have that ability, because I think that is something that should be continued to be approached and attempted, even if you don't believe you have that. Uh, you just need to exercise it. You need to keep working it out. But again, it's your choice to do that or not.
March 26, 2024. These past couple paragraphs refer more to an experience in questioning negative or hateful feelings towards simple things, like if you really didn't like a certain song, television show, the art at the museum, your neighbor's dog coming into your yard, or muffins, etc. There are some things that are indeed much worse and are entirely justifiable in holding negative feelings against, like genocide, racism, sexism, etc. Trans people disliking transphobes is entirely different than a transphobe disliking trans people. The amounts of time and energy we choose to work things out together and or change is entirely up to each individual.
And so I think that's one of the second to last sentence explains what I'm kind of getting at here in a way of again, trans people disliking transphobes, like people who are transphobic, is entirely different than someone who is transphobic just not liking trans people. Or same thing with racism. Uh, People of color disliking racists is entirely different than racists disliking people of color. Um, One is, in my opinion, a little more justifiable than the other, uh, because the other is mostly just built out of hate and misunderstanding and miscommunication. And so, what I'm trying to get, the question at hand is like, are we able to overcome that? Is that something that, what would that even look like? What would that even be like? And that's why I find Afrofuturism so interesting as well. Uh, to be in a post white supremacist world where it doesn't matter who you are, the color you are, what your sex or gender is, and everything. You can just be. You can just be a thing, and uh, and exist with other things. But then again, as I propose in here, there's always going to be that antithesis. There's always going to be that thesis, antithesis, and the synthesis. And going back to, I don't know if we've hit it yet. There's a Star Trek quote of infinite diversity and infinite combinations, and that's going to be different for everyone and everything. But we're in it. We're in it right now, trying to figure it out and see where that goes. And again, what I'm proposing here is to keep trying rather than give up. Just keep trying. It is a difficult thing to do to some things and some people, and some people may not have that ability. And that's where, when we are able to become more selfless, uh, then share a little bit of yourself in that helping, when you can and are able. Don't overdo it. Don't overwork yourself, and uh, hopefully don't give it to people who are taking advantage of that. Again, there's contradictions and paradoxes to everything, every action and anything. But again, what I, for the millionth time, is uh, don't be afraid to try.
April 21st, 2022. Open the Spotify link. An intro to the ontological dissection and explanation of the funk. This came on my shuffle and I re-listened to the entire thing, not having heard it in a while. I have been shuffling old songs, listening to moments I had created in the past. The following tracks are Collection, Tomorrow, Pleased and Thank You'd, Harold, What Are Harold and the Mistakes, Harold, Contact, Best Wishes, and I am currently listening to Entelechy, the synchronicities of each and how by chance they relate to current events make me smile. It's odd yet exciting to experience these moments in time now existing in the future from before and after those past moments to the of these present future moments, and the further understanding what I was describing, what everything would become, and how it was from those moments that this moment has come to exist. And again, I feel that funk feeling, and it connects with me to connect with you to keep going. Influence you our existences by being together as part of that fusion or a simulation of future simulation. Continue extending and expanding our funk souls.
And so this intro to the ontological discussion and explanation of the funk. This was when I believe it was probably like it was very shortly after I had um, the funk meditation, the parability during the parability playlist, which we're not really there yet in the treatise. Um, but I was sharing these thoughts and things with some friends at the time, and to dive deeper into what that was we used to meet after improv class, and we would hang out in the car, and we would uh, improv songs. We would and we would record like podcast, like we called it "Come Be Sad with Us," and we'd make up funny songs and just talk about life and bullshit and stuff. And it was very fun, very funny. Maybe I'll one day release them. I have all the recordings. But one of these nights, I wanted to talk about and share these ideas. I wanted to discuss my experience and what I was trying to uh, explain to others, and this was the first real uh, public attempt of that. And in it, I also improv. I put it at the as the last track of one of my albums, Want versus Need. Um, and the whole album, I improvise piano throughout the entire album. So I made the whole album, and then as a final over track, I played the album and I improvised piano throughout the entire thing. It's all one collective improv over an album, and I only kind of vaguely know how to play piano, so it's a lot of just me, messing around the piano. But to get back to the point, I there is music background on this, um, and it kind of why I did that is to showcase um, the stumbling and learning of concepts of being able to learn how to walk. And there's another song called Kaminar that's about that. It's about learning these things, and a lot of my music um, is about endurance and learning. And so I do put a lot of raw moments and unedited things, and I don't polish them, and I leave them in these songs to showcase that you don't have to be perfect. You're in process of learning and evolving. And one thing that I do want to share about that discussion is just how excited I was by it. And I still, like, now listening to it now, I have cringe moments of like, I wish I hadn't said that, or I wish I was a little bit more calm and collected. But I was just very excited to like share this stuff and talk about it. Um, and some would call this, I can't remember who put it this way, but it's kind of your cringe era. As an artist or a being or someone who's learning or doing, you're not gonna get it right the first few times, right? And this was me not having it right yet, but having the concepts there, and I'm so glad Jackie recorded it because we kept having like even before this, we kept having these deep discussions, and we'd be like, oh shit, we should be recording this so we can look back at it later. And I'm glad that she picked up the phone and started this one because it kind of was the uh, first public explanation of what was coming to be. Again, it's nowhere near what it now is. It was just these base ideas forming and the ramblings of what sounds like a crazy crazy man who was just very passionate and excited to connect on this level with these ideas. Uh, but I can ramble on that even longer. But let's keep going.
There could be millions of people that will potentially agree with what I am saying because they are able to closer recognize the patterns of what makes improvisational game or life/reality better. And there will be millions of others who do not because they cannot yet or perhaps will never see the patterns of what makes game or life/reality more relevant and enjoyable because every individual has their own tastes, desires, wants, needs, perspectives, etc. Their experiences will always be different, sometimes negating, contrasting, and even complementing. But this is still important that everyone plays and interacts and attempts to grow with those who are able to efficiently yes and, unless proven otherwise. If unable, that doesn't make things worse, just different, but still very significant. It seems that a desire to be more significant affects us as thinkers and doers because we are able to witness subjectively more and more progressively significant events as they happen / have happened, and we are selfishly envious of those theoretically more achievable increasing significances, and we over time began to ignore and / or even take advantage of our own to each other's discomforts achieve those significances rather than comfort them and provide for greater funk significance, so it can also provide for you/us. Teamwork makes the dream work.
And so again, to use improv as an example, again, I'm not an improv king professional. There are people who are significantly better at improv than me that understand game and are able to recognize patterns and are so good at active listening and communication that it's just natural for them. But even now, I've been doing improv for a very long time, well over a decade. But we just had a practice today, and even now, sometimes I'm humbled by how much I still have to learn and to grow. But there was something we were talking about in the community recently, of the comedy community, on how improv, unfortunately, I don't know if this is everywhere or not, but the stand-up community or comics and the improv community, whether it's short form or long form, uh, there's just this divide. There's this improv is well more welcoming to the stand-up community than vice versa. For some reason, and I can't speak for everyone, but what I'm getting at is that there are a lot of problematic people that end up in the stand-up community. And every once in a while, something will happen or someone will speak out, being like, why is it that this community attracts these types of people? Um, and the discussion that we were having was, we're lucky that improv rarely has that issue because what you're doing in improv is you have to learn to communicate. You have to learn to listen. You have to learn to be with each other. Uh, and the people who can't do that usually just fade out. They just fizzle out because they know they can't do it. They know that they can't escape the selfishness of themselves. Uh, and the entire group feels it. You feel it as a team or a troop or a class. You get when someone just isn't able to be there and doesn't care what you're doing. They're not a partner. They can't be a partner on stage or in person. Um, and so that's why I really appreciate the selflessness of improv, because once you're able to take care of yourself on stage, then you can start taking care of your partners and everything. And you're both doing that actively at every single moment. Um, I hope I've made my point. I don't really have a finishing thought with a lot of my things. I don't have finishing thoughts. And also uh, my ADHD will just sometimes make things go bye-bye as I'm talking about them. So let us continue.
If a moment of greater significance happens and then does not over time interact with lesser or other significances,
To finish the thought, um, that is why it is so important to sit in those moments and learn how to expand and evolve. But again, there are some people who just can't. I have seen some people go through improv and just never change, until they just stop coming around, because the people who are able uh, will do, and then they're the ones who get all the shows and everything. Um, okay, that let's just finish that thought there, because we can go on forever with any and every thought.
to help assist them, then they will distrust each other and slow down the process of funk expansion. The subjective lesser or other significance will envy, hate, or dismiss the greater significance, and the greater significance will look down on the lesser, and they will fight and take advantage of each other until further significance is made through an unfortunate progression of denials. Eventually, reach unity in some variation or or compromise, as things will naturally progress as they always do. But it is with larger and larger groups of the funk begin to attempt to yes and each other, that there is more progressive progress together as a whole and at much faster rate. For current fictitious example, imagine the possibilities if we could communicate and work together with animals, or be able to collaborate with our elements like Aang or Korra of the Avatar series, even though there would still exist their own sets of problems in these realities.
What I mean by like a moment of greater significance happens, it's like, let's say, I want to give a good example. Let's use power, for example, right? Like, let's say that you are given a position of power, and then you take that power, and instead of using that power to be selfless and help those around you who need that power, and for you to use that power for them, let's just say you take all that power and you shut everything out, and you're just like, nope, this is all mine now. You're on your own, right? Then the people who don't have that, who are uh, in a hierarchical sense below or have less power or ability to do, then eventually they're going to distrust you, and you're going to distrust them because they distrust you, and it's going to be this loop thing until you learn how to um, basically work together and reach a balance. And some will and some won't, and power will corrupt that as well. Uh, and so, again, proposing a maybe uh, unaccomplishable goal of the hopes to accomplish. How do we move beyond that?
August 15th, 2024. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. April 21st, 2022. Or like being a sim within a simulation, able to interact with other simulators within this or greater beyond inner and outer simulations of the collective experience, or whatever funk exists within and without. March 27th, 2024. We are in some ways able to indirectly/directly communicate with these things and influence each other, but imagine being able to directly converse with God/funk, and how significantly that would immediately alter/affect everything. If things you used or interacted with every day could talk to you, like the organs constructing your body, the relationships, responsibilities, power, dynamics, etc., would become significantly different. You would need to work together, or there would be dire consequences. Imagine upsetting your heart or making your stomach angry at you.
And so, to expand on the metaphor, God being the greater significance, whether you believe God or whatever, let's just use the example of God and your understanding of God. Um, a lot of you probably do not have faith or distrust God because God uh, seemingly has stepped back, and it doesn't really interact in the way that you want them to, right? Like, if there is this omnipotent, all powerful being, why won't you help me? Why won't you do these things? Now, I would argue, again, calling it funk. Instead, funk wants you to learn. Funk wants you to act and do, and then it rewards you in a way for doing that. Again, the funk provides. It's going to give you both experiences, and that's what I kind of showcase in here of how throughout this entire treatise and through these examples, and hopefully other people share their own examples and stuff of how that works. And it's weird, and there's no real proof because a lot of people are going to be like, "Ooh, that's just hoo-hoo kind of magic, spiritual stuff." But the examples I've seen and how I've seen it affect people, when you really actually uh, escape your selfishness and become selfless with your environment, how it affects you and how it helps And then when you're in those moments of suffering and struggle, if you've built that community, then those moments of suffering aren't as bad because you've exercised the suffering into something else, into through this community and everything. And I think that's where to get into the religion and everything. And I think that's why a lot of religions build these churches and these communities and everything, not just to share similar ideas and stuff, but to expand their selfish and selflessness together in what I would call a venue. But in my opinion, church or whatever or venues are anywhere and everywhere. It's not a thing that's contained within four walls. You don't have to, in my opinion, go to church every Sunday or things every, you know, I'm blanking on things, but you don't have to like do these traditions and stuff. Now, if that's what makes you comfortable and that's what you believe in, I'm not dismissing them. Absolutely, keep doing that because they've built us to these moments, and that's the significant importance of them. But what I kind of do further challenge that some people are going to disagree with is that if you think that is the only way, and to limit yourself to a single book or idea or outcome, then you're kind of limiting yourself. But to each their own. Maybe that is what you need. Maybe that is what you were designed to do and to be. And so again, I am not dismissing that. I am presenting the suggestion that if you are able, expand yourself.
What I have witnessed is that the past denials, nom-sessions, eventually are provided for less and less, and eventually expand with yes and missions, or are in time moved on from and left out of variables for advancement. In advancement learning, if a digit sequence of data is not able to reach the next point, then it is mathematically / successfully less than all the generations that are now advancing beyond it. And more so, over time becomes mostly past information, whereas yes and becomes faster future information at a constant. The yes ands will learn to build bridges and cross gaps and give denials the option to use those bridges they construct, but the denials seemingly will never cross all the bridges and paths unless carried over by the yes and. Also, in that standing of ground and subjective selfishness of being unmoving, those existing in denial build up walls and fortresses and establish themselves in an effort to be above or greater than the yes and they will inevitably fight the yes and as it is their nature, and in result a substantial amount of the yes and will fight back in both positive and negative ways because it was also once in their nature from the data they have advanced from to deny a denial through yes anding. It is foretold by patterns of the funk that we and all will be disagreed with just for doing and existing, but that doesn't mean you still should not attempt to do or exist. We each make our own individual practical decisions based upon the information / influences we have received and interpreted, and it is significantly important to reach each and every next decision and outcome that our interpretations / influences reveals and leads us to, right and / or wrong. Hand in hand, round and round, seemingly forever and always.
So it's that. Oh, I'm going to let him finish that sentence.
March 29th, 2024. Through every caravannial moment.
It's pretty close.
Until more information and data are collected to investigate / observe everything and understand further.
Now, I forgot what I was going to say. Well, first, what I'm seeing here, maybe this will unlock my train of thought. But we're going to be disagreed with. That's it's just common, And we're also going to be agreed with at many times. We're going to experience both, and I think, just as we talked about earlier, just as Josh said earlier, there's this comfort in tradition of being like, I know this works for me. It's worked before. It's worked yesterday. It's worked up till now. I don't want to change it, because if I change it, then that is the unknowable. Something could happen, and I would, and not I, but the royal I, the royal we, humans do enjoy taking the path of least resistance. It's, I think, an evolutionary tactic, and that's again leading into more funk theory, and so that's why we need to learn how to do that appropriately, whether we ever will reach that or not. But that's what I call Jacques Lasping, of investigating into the unknown. And we'll get more into that later and where that comes from.
March 29th, 2024. These denials, yes, and yes ands are at some points in time one and the same. Omissions and non-missions existing as quimissions until resulting as one or the other or both all. If you were creating a system of advanced learning attempting to teach a program to walk, each attempt would be a yes and omission until it failed, resulting in a denial non-mission. These attempts would continue with each iteration / generation until the program achieved the end result through an absolute omission of all previous failed attempts to be once omissions, yes ands, then non-missions, denials, and now quimissions.
And this, and a little bit earlier in this paragraph, I remember what I was kind of going to say. So, like, yes and, what I mean by, like, we mission is, like, let's say you live in a village, right? Or you live in a community, and eventually we're like, okay, hey, we're gonna go move somewhere else. We're gonna see what exists beyond this village. A lot of people would be like, I'm cool here. I'm good to be. I'm gonna sit, do my thing, and maybe there's they might be selfish, be like, I'm gonna stay here. But maybe they take care of people in the village. Maybe they're the farmer or the whatever. They help the community and such. And so the group of people go off. They they do their thing. They make another village and land. Um, uh, or even, to use the example, like, let's say they come across a river and they build a bridge. And then they go and they find the city, and then they build the city, and then they go back to the village and, like, oh my gosh, guys, we have another thing now. We've expanded. Some people are going to be like, oh, cool, let's go. Yes, and let's do this. And some people are still going to no, but. Again, there's no right or wrong in this scenario. And also, it could be an infinite amount of scenarios. Maybe there's a volcano that is about to erupt, and they're like, okay, guys, we got to go because it's going to ruin the village. Some people are going to go, and some people aren't. And it's their choice to do all of that and everything.
Omissions, non-missions, and quimissions, first defined on page 57.
So, we mission, no mission, and key mission.
Imagine people having a discussion, and in that discussion, one of these persons mumbles something, and the group is unable to register what was actually said. yes and will ask the mumbler, kindly or not, however they selfishly act within this moment or group selflessness, to repeat what they said so that they or others can translate properly for further use to respond to. A denial, disguised as a yes and, will also make actions in their selfishness and choose to nod their head and or laugh, pretending they had received what was transmitted, and will have questionably less significant impact on this selfless connection of group discussion. Either the denier doer slash doesn't either the denier does slash doesn't desire enough to want to receive what was transmitted, or they are unable or currently yet don't know how. The mumbler can also reattempt to confirm what they said, yes and, or they can deny and say something else or withhold what they said. Whatever individual selfish choice that the selfless, selfish group have to again attempt to interpret. April 21st, 2022, or do whatever their slash our sim slash avatar does slash will eventually do.
And so, again, using that metaphor as an example, let's say you're in a group of people talking, and let's say you yourself, you mumble something, or something happens that you're just not understood. Now, the group of people, how do they respond? Do they say, "I'm sorry, I you're gonna have to speak up. I didn't hear that." You can say that in a variety of different ways. You can be like, "Speak up, idiot." You can say it nice. You can say it mean. There's a variety, the spectrum of how you can yes and on getting what was mumbled back out. But then there's also people who are just going to be like, they're going to pretend that they understood what you said. They're, yep, and that's kind of a yes and a no but disguised as a yes and. You're still yes anding the moment, but did you really hear it? Are you actively listening and communicating? And then there's going to be the people who just do not care. They will just, all right, let's move on, or they'll make fun of the person. And so they'll be like, "Oh, you mumble, you're an idiot. How about you leave right now?" That was a wonderful attempt of being mean at someone.
Song sweep plays which signifies we should move on to the next thing, and ends as I do. Next track, teacha. Later, as chance would have it, ends and segment 2 of the April Fool begins. Go to page 263 or back again.
And so, at this point of the treatise, just as I suggest on one of the first pages, I think page 3, if you want, you can now skip to page 263. Now, the video readings were not that far yet, but if you'd like to just skip all of this and everything, just like we talked about kind of here in the earlier pages, if you just want to skip to the end or go to page 263, I'm inviting you to do that. You can go to that section right here and still expand with the funk to a degree. And whether you want to come back and go through all of this, these next pages, 48 to 263, that is up to you. It is optional. All of this is optional. Choose your own adventure. And if you do go, this is the page you would be also, it links you back here if you do want to come back.
Hours later, Fight or Flight begins playing when I return to the edit. Saturday, December 7th, continued. You can see the patterns we create and have created for us / everything and how we attribute all past and additional created and relative existences to ourselves, our homes, appearances, communities around us, etc. Further, we are able to make judgments and decisions gathered from forms of random chance number generated moments, whether we know how to or not. The past that we understand to know so far did not and does not have a clear understanding of our future slash present, but is slash was able to make possible predictions based on the information and observations of past present. Aristotle never used or experienced an iPad unless in some form of thought, dream, guess, or influence, and he probably never mentioned anything about iPads. But now iPads are being mentioned and are relevant to us and our learning experience, and we are advancing with them and from them more easily. Just like we have with Aristotle. March 9th, 2023. In the present time, you can use AI to show Aristotle using an iPad, and not just a drawing, but a photorealistic photo or video, and these abilities will continue increasing and expanding until they can't, won't, or shouldn't. The future infinitely expands from slash with the past slash present. March 31st, 2024. In only 1 year since I left that last edit, these programs have become even more convincing, easier to use, and a lot more powerful. It's both exciting and frightening to imagine what technology will be able to do and how it will be used in another year, or 10 years, 50, etc.
And at this time, a year later than that, it's becoming frighteningly hard to tell what is AI and what is not. And it's going to continue increasing. And that is being used right now against us. But it's also sometimes fun to use.
There is a phrase that you could probably Google right now if you were not aware of it that says, history has a way of repeating itself, which is us highlighting and learning and slash or not learning from the patterns of the funk. And as you apply that information to the present, future, and somehow back to the past, the noticeably more so it becomes. March 31st, 2024. Link, historic references. Perhaps past philosophers like Socrates, Thales, Libyans, or Whitehead, etc., never knew exactly of the funk, but somehow the way they were able to access information caused them to help kickstart further learning from what was learned and from them and more. We are now discussing everything as they and the funk were able to connect using what we know at the time of our existences, and that's perhaps why Whitehead, Descartes, Baudrillard, Chomsky, and every other notable name, and you and I know what we know because of the funk, somehow provides everything to us. March 31st, 2024. Entelechie. And we are able to provide back. March 31st, 2024. Zoroastry, page 89, March 9th, 2023. Though, as I learn more and more about these philosophers, it really showcases that they were all attempting to describe the funk that they understood and were able to understand at their points of space-time.
And so, yeah, that's kind of what I mean. It's like all of us and everything were just stepping stones leading up to this moment. I am able to talk in the way that I do about all these philosophers and mention all of these weird connections and concepts and ideas. I can talk about an iPad because we have experienced an iPad. Most of the people before this, they had never experienced what an iPad is, and so they could only describe funk in the way that their space time allowed them to describe it to be, and their understanding, and their group communal understanding. And now we have all of this time and history behind us and experience that we can hyperanalyze it, and that hyperanalysis is going to continue to increase. Just as Baudrillard talks about, we're now in a hyper-realistic state. We're within the hyper-reality at this point.
April 21st, 2022. Hammer down plays followed by what do or don't you, and segment 2 of Listen. Saturday, December 7th, 2019 continued. I'd like to talk about what made me finally sit down and write this all out after years of figuring out how to do so. In a state of deep meditation, personally the deepest state I had ever reached, I was able to relax my entire body, something I had before never been able to do.
I still just about can't relax my body. It's what I call prelaxing. And that's another word that'll come in the treatise later.
I felt my body becoming both weightless and connected to the pull of gravity, and for the first time I was able to look deeper into the nothing. My eyes were closed, but it felt as if they were open. It became the between, and in that between I began to see some of the most intricate and detailed illusions I have ever been able to witness. Visions and patterns I will never be able to describe or share unless you were able to access my memories. I could see my consciousness traveling through entire dimensions. Everything across my entire life leading up to that moment began to show me how they were connected and began to make more and more sense, and the music I was meditating to and the environment around myself began to connect to me.
And I really want to help you understand this experience because it wasn't like a trip, right? It wasn't like a dream. It wasn't a dissociation. Um, it wasn't I still was fully aware of my environment and everything around me. I was just meditating, and the state of relaxation that I reached, it was like as if because it wasn't a dream, you know. But the way I'm going to describe it to you right now is like as if I was dreaming, like you know how you when you have thoughts and dreams, the way you see them, they're so vivid, they're almost real, right? And same thing with thinking, to a degree. But it was as if I was experiencing my mind showing me these things, and that's why I described it as kind of a funk translation, because I can't say that reality was like speaking to me in this sense because there were no words, there were no like, there wasn't this voice that like told me these things. I just had understandings of things, and the imagery that I was experiencing was as if like even though my eyes was closed, like it was as if I could see right now, like if even my eyes closed right now, like I can't see my computer or anything, but in the moment it was as if I had never closed my eyes at all, but I was being shown uh, the reality, I guess, of my mind, of my inner mind, uh, and it was showing me um, the intricacies of funk. And there are things that I don't remember everything of it. And one of the understandings that I had during it was you're going to forget a lot of this. You're only going to remember the key points. And I'll probably get into this in a bit, but it basically, the understandings that I had was, and it's going to come up in a second, was the idea of parability came to me, which wasn't really a word at the time, from what I've looked up. Um, and what that meant to me was the ability to work together, this parability. Um, but my understandings, additionally, uh, it was like you're going to do these things. It is because all these ideas had been forming over the last few years and stuff. Like the idea of funk, I had kind of been talking about with people as the idea was growing and forming. But this was the moment that I had this understanding that I was going to write this treatise, that I was going to do these things, that when I came out of this meditation, that I was going to either open up a Word document and start writing about this experience and phenomena, or I wouldn't, and and I eventually either would, or someone or something else would, um, which you can see all of history of how that happens. Someone or something else in this collective consciousness does all these ideas that you think. Like there's so many times where I'll have an idea of something special or unique, and then I'll see it online somewhere, whether it be a joke or an idea or a concept. Like the good example I have is, and there's a lot more that, and I always wish that I write them down, but I sadly don't. Even though I do tell myself to do that a lot, and I do write down a lot of notes. This is one of the things that I always forget to do. But one of the examples is, I remember having the idea uh, back in the day that if you called someone and rather than hearing like a phone ring and everything, it would be super cool to basically be able to choose your own music that people could listen to. And then uh, a few years later, uh, after the cell phones became a big thing, you could do that. You could choose your own thing, and have calls and songs and stuff. And now they do it basically for like call waiting. They basically like play like the music and stuff for that. But this was also to a higher degree, like you be able to choose like your kind of away status for your phone. One that I had, uh, additionally, when I was very young, I had the idea that like for zits and acne, if they had like a kind of device that was a suction, like a vacuum suction that you could put against your pimples and stuff, and it would like suck out the pus rather than squeezing it and the damage that that can do and stuff. And so it would just vacuum out. And I don't know if that is safe or not, but they make those now. And there's a lot of different concepts and ideas that I've had over the years that I then see later on. And I wish I had the power to um, patent those ideas and make them myself before they became things. My life would be completely different. But then I would be here doing these things with you. Um, but it kind of gave me that understanding that I was going to do these things, or eventually I'd do them, or eventually someone or something else would, and that I shouldn't be afraid. Uh, and I know that that is something that's like biblical and stuff. And because this was all, I understand my own brain doing this to me. Um, and that's why some would describe this as an enlightening, there's or an awakening. There's many different words for it. I still don't know how to describe it, and that's one of the reasons why I write this. Why I'm writing this treatise, because I had this experience that basically gave me, uh, I can't say complete faith, but very strong faith in that I was going to do these things. And here we are, from those now 6 years later, almost, from that moment of you're going to do these things, and so here I am doing those things and continuing those things and expanding that reach. Um, but let's get back to the treatise.
The word parability came to mind across all these thoughts and connections, and when I opened my eyes, the information coming from my laptop computer and the sounds and senses I was experiencing began to deeply process each other. I began to think deeper and more easily reach the next advancement in thought. Every time I would close my eyes to return to meditate, I more actively began putting together all these thoughts that were now connecting closer. And when I would reach a point of questioning or arrive at a crossroads of thought or understanding, I would hear a lyric or transition of a song that just happened to respond or answer, almost like a soundtrack accompaniment, and it would assist me to a solution or more answers and questions.
And again, this is something that is going to be quite slightly difficult to relay, because when I guarantee when some people hear that, they're going to be like, "Oh, well, you were just experiencing what's that thing that seeing that where aren't there? Yeah, patterns that aren't there. Uh, apophenia, right? Seeing connections between things that aren't really there, or uh, pareidolia, I don't know how to pronounce that one, but also very similar. Is the it's a phenomenon where you see objects and things and stuff, mostly like smiles and things. Like when you look at a plug socket, you see a face, but there's not really a face there. We just kind of recognize it as that. Um, but all these the weird things that were happening was I was experiencing all these synchronicities at this time, and they were like almost constant. Uh, and I don't know if you meditate, or let's just say you're thinking internally. Like imagine you were sitting there thinking about something, and then you were like, I wonder uh, what the answer is, right? Like I wonder what would lead me to the solution of this thing, and then imagine the song that's playing responds with something that's basically the answer, like something, or not basically the answer, but leads you to the next step. You're like, uh, I don't have great examples of it because again, uh, I forgot a lot of that. I couldn't remember every moment and everything, um, but I just remember uh, meditating and being in my thoughts and having these questions and being like, okay, well, if I'm going to do these things, then what if I do this? How do I do this? And then the music would respond, like whatever was in the lyrics, or when I was coming to Revelations, the way the score would just like pick up in these moments of just like the world was just synchronizing all together as if it was just amplifying this moment of understanding of like you did it, you reached this thing you're seeing, uh, and also like when I would open my eyes, would this a question be like, and taking a break from the meditation because of all these like thoughts and things that were happening, uh, more answers would just be on the computer. Like it'd be something that I had looked up in the past or whatever, or even moments of just like accidentally clicking on something, and it just being the right thing, and it was just so surreal and paranormal. Uh, and again, I, some of you will be like, that's mental illness, or you experienced something, and maybe I did, but to my own sense, I've never experienced anything like that since ever. I've experienced small moments of synchronicities, and I see how these patterns, and I try to describe these moments of funk synchronicity and stuff when they happen, and you'll see them if we're ever like together in person and they happen. I will say the funk provides, and most people are like, "Wow, that is a crazy coincidence," because it is. It's just weird how these things uh, add together and come together to lead us to the next moment. And when we witness them, when we're able to learn how to speak this universal language, because that's what I think it kind of is. I think um, to a degree of uh, ability. I think it's a different type of ability to be able to see, um, to speak with life, um, or to speak with funk, or to relate with funk. And I've always noticed that I have been a very observant person, um, and been able to see micro expressions and things in people and micro moments and such. And I also very much see my prediction, like when I watch movies and everything, of being able to like call it for what it is and be like, oh, this is about to happen. That guy's about to die. Uh, Already spoiling the end. Like I remember when I saw spoilers for Sixth Sense. Sixth Sense, if you've never seen it, but I remember seeing that with my mom, and the whole movie just leaning over to her, be like, "He's dead. He's dead." Uh, and then at the end of the movie, when the twist is he's a ghost, everyone be like, "Oh!" It's like I did. No one else really see that coming, and I've experienced moments of that throughout my entire life. Uh, and from what I'm learning more recently, is apparently that's a symptom of ADHD, of being able to uh, hyper predict what is happening. One thing, and I don't know what it's called, but it's I experience it a lot. Is when people are talking, I will have sensed essentially where they're going before they get there. Um, and I also notice like people will repeat themselves in things, uh, and it's just the way people talk and stuff. And so there's definitely uh, that's why I'm sharing my experience. Essentially, is to translate that I experienced this thing. I'm sure there are others who have experienced similar things. Um, a really good podcast is Buddha at the Gas Pump, who basically interviews people who talk about similar experiences like this, like having enlightenment or experiencing a what is it, a Kundalini awakening and such. Which recently, with all these postings and stuff, I had someone reach out, basically describing that they believe that they are experiencing a Kundalini experience, and we had a good discussion about that and their experience and how all of this relates to that, and how these experiences, my experiences, and what I've learned through these experiences, I was able to relay to her and to help her through her experience. Because a Kundalini awakening is a that's even way deeper than what I experienced. Like that's something that people definitely think you're probably going crazy and stuff, because you are experiencing some things during a so-called Kundalini awakening, whether you believe in that or not. But the things that I've read on that, there's a really good book down here, Perfect Madness. Um, I got a lot of books stacked on top of it. I don't know her first name. Donna Lee Gorell, Perfect Madness. It's a book where she had a Kundalini awakening, or what she describes as a Kundalini awakening, and she describes her experience of what she experienced and how people treated her through that experience. And it basically is a lot of like people thought she was going mad, and she thought she was going mad. She thought she thought something was wrong, because I'm sure something feels like it was wrong. Now, for me, I didn't feel like anything was wrong. I didn't feel like this isn't meant to be the all of my understanding of it was this. This is it. Uh, this was my purpose. This is why I'm here. I was meant to do these things, and it kind of showed me in that understanding. Again, I say show and tell, but it was just a understanding that I felt.
When I would hit deeper thoughts or be on a roll, the music would heighten, or when approaching another subject of thought, the song would change. Everything was by some extreme chance accenting each other. I would open my eyes in thought, and the first thing I saw on my computer screen, continuously by coincidence, would be the answer I needed, or lead to the next connection, making perfect sense and fitting into these patterns I have been attempting to describe to you, and would instantly lead me to the next profound thought and or the next connection. For almost the entire night, I witnessed and experienced the coincidental pattern after pattern, leading me to deeper and deeper understanding of the connections. I understand how all of these events can be viewed as reach or overanalysis, and it is and it isn't. I have increasingly over time witnessed coincidental pattern after pattern, almost too much to seem like coincidence. I recorded each song that happened during this time, and the playlist is as follows, interpreted as you will. Keep in mind that this playlist was on shuffle and contains 11,000 songs to choose from. March 9th, 2023. Carl Jung described these moments as synchronicities, and this was hours full of back-to-back synchronicity. Honestly, one of the most surreal events of my life. It showed me that I would construct this treatise and make this journey, and at times would face both praise and backlash for doing so. But that it was always going to be so, and to not be afraid.
Yeah.
And that even if I, at that point or any point, chose not to and seek a different path, eventually myself or someone else would. April 1st, 2024. Some would call this an enlightening or a kundalini awakening or an alchemical process / change / journey, and some would call it a hallucination or some form of mental thing. I still don't have the correct words or explanation to quite describe it.
Nope.
I understand that it had to be my own brain imagination providing the experience to me, but it very much felt to be coming from beyond me. I wish I could recount to you the exact scene of events, but it told me that I would forget and only remember the happenings of and write about them and to seek more information.
Well, one of the feelings that I had and the understandings that I had of this thing being beyond me was it felt like, again, we talked about it in the last episode of the Panopticon and this constant state of viewing. Like, I felt I was being, like, observed, kind of, to a way. Like, I didn't feel like people were watching me or anything, but I felt like the universe was. And it is. The funk is always, experiencing you. You can't escape it. And it kind of got me into the idea of, like, what if in, like, millions to billions to trillions of years, there are people sitting back watching this moment? Maybe I was feeling you, the viewer, watching this video, and I was just getting all these feelings of the future, essentially, but also the present and the past, and also the I'll never be able to explain the visuals that I was experiencing, but what it made me feel like was, no, I can't even attempt to describe it. It was basically like taking me through this journey through space and time, and to witness it. And there's no way for me to even translate that to you. You would have to literally be inside my brain and see it at the time. But sadly, again, a lot of that is lost to time, unless it's still in there somehow.
I don't meditate in this form as much anymore, except for when seeking direction, as eventually my intuition and or funk expressed to me to spend my time doing other things like writing, editing, this, and seeking further knowledge, experience, and to be present. But I continued to chase that state for a while and was only able to get close a few times. That pure hypnagogic-like state of transcendence. It genuinely was like connecting to the funk / being funk, Though I still experience slash witness synchronicities just about every day, whether they may be my own or others.
And bringing back to boot on the gas pump, a lot of the people who also experienced similar things like this or awakenings and everything, they also, uh, not all of them, but a strong amount too, I learned to hear, once they've hit this moment, they also stop meditating. And they got this feeling, just as I did, that uh, it's not what I had to be spending my time on anymore. And to do this, to extend myself in other places and elsewhere, to be elsewhere, and do other things. Um, Now, I still would like to get deeper into meditation in the form of like discipline and control. Um, but again, that branches into both. Do I continue to do other things, um, or do I take the time to do that? But that is my own self discipline and everything. Just like working out or other stuff. Now, I believe right here, this cuts to something else, but I have in the seventh edition something that I wrote the recently, and so I'm going to share that from the seventh edition. This is April 8th, 2025. A wonderful example of synchronicity, coincidence, and manifestation happened today. Before I left for a concert, I considered making a post online if anyone had any connections at the venue or steps that I could take to have better opportunities to meet the artists in the future so that I could attempt to have them draw a draw book. I like to go to a lot of concerts and everything, and when I'm there, some of the venues that I go to, uh, either the artists will like come out and help sign merch, or I could meet them on their way out of the building or something like that to the bus and stuff. I don't like to bother them, and so what I was hoping for, because at White Oak there's usually no way to talk to the artists unless they come out to the merch booth, because basically like they have their buses are in the complete back. They can avoid everyone and anyone. And so I wanted to like see if there was a way, like if I could get a pass or something, like to go backstage and uh, meet artists and have them draw, take part in my drawbook project. And so let's continue to see what happened.
April 21st, 2022.
Oh wait, I'm reading this. Uh, to the drawbook. Since I was already on my way out, I decided to procrastinate it to another time and headed up to the venue. And so I didn't. I didn't. I just had the thought of like, I bet if I reached out on Facebook or something, made a post on Instagram, maybe someone would know someone. But I didn't because I was running late, and so I was like, I'll do this another time. And so on the way. On the way there, I hit heavy traffic and I began to worry that I was going to get a bad spot on the lawn, where I couldn't occasionally sit down and be comfortable, because I can't stand for very long periods. I have very bad feet. And so I do like to get a spot where, if I'm on the lawn and everything, where I can, sit against the wall. They have like a fence area and stuff. And so I caught myself starting to get into these bad thoughts. And I said out loud, no, I'm going to get a great seat. And then I started, because I had watched a few like videos in the weeks before this of people talking about affirmations and everything, and the power of affirmations, whether you again believe that or not. And so I was just kind of having fun with myself and joking and being like, no, I'm going to get a great seat. And then I started just like joking around with that in a playful mood. Uh, and so said a few more affirming statements that put me in a good mood. And so I got to the concert and I found a really good spot. But I was still curious about the reserved sections, like if I could, find a seat on, um, like they have actual chairs or they have like a balcony that you can upgrade to. And so I was just curious if they had anything available, if I could make an upgrade. Um, and so I asked, and they led me to the people who I could ask that to. And then I asked the guy, and he's like, I don't really know, but I do know who you could ask. Excuse me. Hopefully I don't have any like boogers hanging out my face. But the guy was like, he was like, I don't know, but I know who you should ask. Let me go find her. And he's like, you can get out and go ask the front desk. But then the lady I needed to ask was just walking up, and he was like, "Oh wait, here she is." And so we asked her, and she's like, "No, sorry, everything, all the upgrades were sold out. Were sold out." Um, which at the time I was like, "Oh, okay, I understand." And so I went back to my spot, but I found an even better spot that was in shade where I could sit down and chill. And after the opening band finished, someone I hadn't seen in a while was walking by, and they were about to sit down in front of me. But I called them out, and I hadn't seen her in a long time, so I called her over, and we had a really good chat, and we caught up with each other while the opening act, St. Vincent, was getting ready to go on and stuff. And so she told me that day that my music had come up on her shuffle earlier that morning. And it made her wonder what I was up to these days and how I was doing. And so another moment of synchronicity. My music came on her shuffle that day, and she had been thinking about me that day. And then now here we are, being able to catch up and meeting, just because I saw her and I was like, "Oh, hey!" She was right in front of me, and I was just like, "Sam." Um, and so and then during the show, we're sitting there chilling, enjoying the show. This guy just comes by and just stops at us. Like, he doesn't look at anyone else or anything. Like, he talks to us specifically, and uh, he leans over to Sam, and he mentions that last time he was here, he got to know the general manager, and even though that she wasn't there tonight. He was texting her, and she had put him in contact with the guy who was in charge that night. Um, and the dude that was talking to us now was curious if we wanted to join him up on the balcony for like free drinks and balcony seats and stuff, even though they were sold out. Um, and so we're like, yeah, of course we want to go up on the balcony for free cheese stuff. Now I'm sober, so I didn't have any alcohol, but they had some really good. Uh, they had a great mocktail. I can't remember what it was called. Um, but we go and we meet up with the guy in charge. Like, he's texting the dude, and so we go inside. We get the wristbands, and so they weren't sold out at all. And then we moved up to the spot on the balcony that's overlooking the lawn. And then a bit later, I was like, maybe that's the guy that I should talk to, or maybe I got bold to be like, let's see what I could do in my own actions to see how I could, possibly get that step to meet the artist, to go backstage if I can, if they want, because artists are different. Some want to talk to people, some don't want to talk to people, and I'm cool with that. And so, to my ability, what I'm trying to extend is a better chance of opportunity to do these things. And so I go back downstairs, and I ask for the dude, and I talked to some of the staff, and I asked who I needed to talk to and what are the steps that I needed to gain access to artists before or after the show. And it just so happened that that guy who gave us the wristbands was the dude in charge of making those decisions. And so I got his email. And that is a situation of the funk provides. All of those synchronicities led up through that manifestation of being like, man, I wish I had the ability to meet the artist. Now, I haven't worked up the courage to send him the email and ask to go backstage to any things, but I've also only been to one concert since that at that venue. And it was someone that I just learned about and was like interested in to go to. So most of the people that I would want to meet and talk with are like people, artists that I'm familiar with, that I have a lot of respect for. I think it would kind of be a little uh, less genuine for people to just go to every single concert and be like, hey, congrats on your success drawing this book. That doesn't seem very personal. Like, when I meet artists and celebrities, I love picking their brains on like just random things, like just talking to them as people, but as people who have had the privilege of getting to where they are and stuff. Like, what is that like? How'd you get there? Um, what are your? I don't need to actually tell you these questions and stuff. I just ask random things. And so back to the actual treatise. April 21st, 2022. I'm still. Let's see where.
I am still within the earlier mentioned experience of segment 2 of Listen. And technically, so are you. We are right now, and beyond in a form of it.
So, for context, "Listen" is one of the albums that I did that was inspired by John Cage's 355. I think it's no, I'm blanking on that. John Cage might be 411 or something like that. 433. John Cage's 4 minutes and 33 seconds, which was a performance where he basically went and sat at the piano and then did nothing for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. And the idea of the piece is all the music is the environment around it. The guy coughing in the background, people shuffling their feet. Um, and I learned about that when I went to band camp in like middle school. And the concept of it blew my mind. I was like, that is such a cool idea. And I asked every year when I went back to band camp if I could perform that piece. And it was always, sadly, a no. And also, another piece that inspired Listen was Wolfpack's Sleepify, where basically they made an album of silence and they called their fans to go onto Spotify and listen to this album on repeat while they slept, and then they used the royalties to go on tour. And now Spotify basically punishes all artists and people who do that. So great job taking advantage of the system, but it sucks that Spotify saw and took extreme countermeasures on stuff like that. But Listen for me is a 4 segment piece of 15 minutes of that, of just sitting in silence and being. And at the time, it came up on my shuffle, and it was segment 2. And this piece is different for everyone and everything, and it's basically kind of silence. And so we are still in this moment of listen. Um, we're always in a moment of listen and silence, but just with sound going um, on the spaces between.
Feels now as it felt then, and possibly for you currently now within that awareness of funk synchronicity. March 9th, 2023. This time I am sitting in silence as I edit, reflecting on these experiences. Again, feeling the similar feelings and experiences, the type of silence you would hear if you were experiencing any segment of Listen or beyond an absence of music. I resume the playlist in a shuffle and finding it begins. April 18th, 2022. The Parability playlist. These were songs that played during that night of meditation, connection, synchronicity.
And so that night when I was meditating, again, what I call the Parability playlist, I was listening to what is called, and you can find the link in here or in the link chain, um, or through my Spotify. Basically, it was what's called the greatest shuffle ever made. And Spotify only lets your playlist go up to 11,000 tracks. And I listen to a lot of music. And basically, what the greatest shuffle ever made is like literally everything I've ever listened to or what people show me and stuff. And I save it all in these great playlists. I think it's up to like the greatest shuffle ever made part 3 right now. Um, I often forget to add to it these days, but it's still huge. And so while I was listening to that 11,000 track playlist on shuffle, the songs that came up are what's called the Parability playlist. These are what inspired that idea of parability, of reaching out and trying to communicate and learn how to the ability of para of all, um, and how to be there for each other and help with for people who can and cannot um, do so for themselves or others or anything. Like how do we how do we achieve this parability? There's greater ways to explain that, but I'm kind of blanking on it. And I'm assuming that you kind of understand, even though parability is kind of a made up word that came to me. Um, but also with the Pairability playlist, and we're also going to start getting to the songs. He's going to read a few before we end. But if you want to listen to the Pairability playlist, I have that as the link. You can find the link in the treatise. You can find it in the link section. You can find it down below. But there's also, so you can listen to that. But I also made an album of it where again, just like I did with Want versus Need, I improvise over this playlist, and so it's designed. You open the playlist on Spotify, you hit play, and then you hit play of the album, and you can download the album, or you can find it on YouTube or Bandcamp or whatever, and you play them concurrently. You play them at the same time, and it adds to the experience. Again, it's just me improvising on piano, and so it is subjective on how much you enjoy that, because it is like 2 hours long with all these songs. But it's also a really good playlist if you just want to listen to these songs individually as a playlist.
Link to Spotify playlist. What would I want? Sky, Animal Collective, Round and Round, Ariel Pink, Everyone's a Winner, Ty Segall, America, Simon and Garfunkel, Do It Again, Steely Dan, Lily Toro y Moy, At Night in Dreams, White Denim, Leaf House, Animal Collective, Thank You, Fallatime Be Myself Again, Sly and the Family Stone, Dirty Work, Steely Dan, That's My Way, Led Zeppelin, Kaleidoscope, Bad, Bad, Not Good, Only Shallow, My Bloody Valentine, Oh Sweet Nothin', The Velvet Underground, Paranoid Android, Radiohead, Uninvisible, Medeski, Martin and Wood, Sense, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, Peaches and Regalia, Frank Zappa, If You Want Me to Stay, Sly and the Family Stone, Cut Your Hair, Pavement, Finger Bib, Aphex Twin, I Saw the Light, Todd Rundgren, Low Boob Oscillator, Stereo Lab. Okay. So I went a little into page 51.
That's
just
okay.
to finish that list. So I'm not really sure, like, exactly what I'm reading here. Like, but, you know, it's, is this like a paper, I'm wondering? Or just like a, you know, in my head, I'm always trying to think of what the story is. So, like the first part of it really was a lot, kind of was like a lot of philosophy, sort of. It was hard for me to read just personally because I'm really dyslexic.
I can see.
So
this would definitely be
like
difficult.
words like selfish and selfless repeated like very close to each other. It's easy for me to mix up just because of me.
You did fine.
But yeah, I mean, like there's a lot of ideas that I really relate to in this, like music kind of being a, you know, communication, like dialect of God, or the funk, I guess, is what it's being called here. And then I appreciated, like at the end of my segment, the story about the playlist, because that kind of helped me understand like where everything was coming from, and sort of brought it down to a human relatable level. So that's my thoughts, and interesting. Thanks.
And thank you, Justin, for reading pages 41 through 50. He said something that I was going to comment on, but now I don't remember.
A, you know, communication, like dialect of...
Being a story. The story isn't your traditional story. It's not this hero versus journey. The story is how all of this unfolds and leads to this moment here, and also pointing out things and such. But we've talked a lot. This is already 2 hours, and I really have to go to the bathroom. So I am going to end it here. I love you. I'll see you next time, if that's going to be however long for you, whether it's the next video, if you're in the future, or if it's next week, or if it's next year. In case I don't say a good afternoon, good evening, and good night, the funk provides. Peace!